Could Eric Bieniemy be on his way back to Kansas City? Well, there's some rumors swirling that if Washington decides to not only fire Ron Rivera but clean house, well, Bieniemy may be back with the Chiefs a little sooner than expected, maybe even for the 2023-2024 playoffs. We'll have to see, though, but we're going to talk about all that on today's Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. We appreciate you hanging out with us, spending some time here. I'm your host, Jay Sanders, and, well, let's start off with this. If you like Eric Bieniemy and you want him back because, well, we've talked about Matt Nagy. We've seen the offense he's put out on the field, and it's not exactly been the greatest. You want Bieniemy back? Why don't you do me a favor? Like that video. That tells me right away who wants Bieniemy back. Pretty much a head count lets me know, so it takes 2 seconds. Go down there, smash that like button. Helps me out. I know exactly who wants Bieniemy back, and it shows a little support to Eric Bieniemy. I'd really appreciate it. Let me know in the like button below. Here's the quote that we're going to talk about. So this is from Pro Football Talk, basically saying this. First, the Commanders would have to fire Bieniemy. If and when they move on from Coach Ron Rivera, the Commanders could choose to hold other members of the staff in place until the next coach decides whether to keep him. Now, I like that quote because it's going to be up to the Commanders to see if they want to keep him or not, or they could clean house. When Ron Rivera gets fired, they can say everybody's done, which could line up perfectly for the Chiefs because guess what? There's a very good shot there in the playoffs. I mean, you only have to win one game against the Chargers, the Bengals here in your upcoming 2 weeks, or have the Raiders lose one game. You're in the playoffs with there. Pretty simple explanation. And Bieniemy could come back and overall just kind of rehaul this offense and make it to where you're able to potentially have a Super Bowl caliber team. If we look at what has happened this year and what has happened last year, it is two distinct, differently offenses. You have the points per game severely separated with Bieniemy and Nagy. You have the passing yards per game, way better for Bieniemy. The rushing yards is a little bit better for Bieniemy. Obviously, that would make the total yards per game better. And the big thing, at this point in the season, last year, the Chiefs were at 12 wins. They're at 9 wins at this point as we head into week 17 this year. And we talk about this because the frustration that is showing from everybody in the organization, and maybe more, or rather most importantly, from Patrick Mahomes. Now, he started to show his frustration a couple weeks ago with referees, with his wide receivers, with pretty much everybody on the staff that kind of worked with him. Now, that was one thing and kind of understandable. But more recently, it was frustration with the coaches. It was frustration with the play calling. It was frustration with Andy Reid and Matt Nagy and kind of understanding how exactly this dynamic has worked, or rather not worked. And I think now it's a perfect time to have that kind of dynamic switch up because you could have a potential guy who knows this offense and is very close with Patrick Mahomes to come in and, I don't want to say it, but possibly save the season. Now, you can save your season by going to PrizePicks because I'm telling you, if the Chiefs stink, if bad things happen, well, you can still make some money off it by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and using code CLNS, getting a first deposit match of up to $200. Now, if you don't know what PrizePicks is, it's a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And the cool thing is you can combo your projections across the NBA and NFL. So you can put some picks on say, a Travis Kelce, more touchdowns, and more on, say, Ja Morant points. Now, I've got my entry in for Saturday's game with Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and Amon-Ra St. Brown going the more on all three. Passing yards for Goff and Prescott, receiving yards for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm looking for an offensive game in AT&T Stadium on Saturday, and I think I'm going to get it. Now, PrizePicks also offers a reboot policy so that even if one of those players gets injured, my entry would actually stay in place. So for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and then does not return the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Once again, that code, CLNS, when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS to get that first deposit match of up to $100. Shout out to PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Now let's talk about why this could be a good situation for Patrick Mahomes, because he loves Eric Bieniemy. He said this earlier in the year when some criticism started arising for how Eric Bieniemy handled his players in Washington. Patrick said, EB is going to be harsh on you. He's going to really try to get the best out of you every single day. He's going to hold you accountable whenever you don't even want to hold yourself accountable. And it made me a better player. Well, then get him back. If he made Patrick Mahomes one of the best quarterbacks of our generation better, then you need to get him back. Like, I don't care what it takes. If he is not on the Commanders in the next 2 weeks, he should be on the Chiefs. He should be on a flight to Kansas City within the next couple days. It makes a lot of sense to get him back because the offense just hasn't been the same. And yes, the wide receivers haven't been good, but I look back to last year and I look at Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think, was he a safety valve? Yes. Was he better than the wide receivers we've had this year? Yes. But did he make or break the offense? No. Yet this year, the offense has looked nothing like last year. And the only difference besides not having Juju is Bieniemy not being here. And so you have to start looking at this from an outsider's perspective and say, well, what's different from last year to this year when you had the Super Bowl in hand and now you look like you may be one and done in the playoffs? It's Eric Bieniemy. I have to ask this question. Pro Football Talk mentioned that Bieniemy could be back for the playoffs. Like, the Chiefs could hire him and he could coach in the playoffs this season. So I put this question out to Chiefs Kingdom. Could the Chiefs make a Super Bowl run if Eric Bieniemy comes back for the 2024 playoffs? Well, let me know in the comment section of today's video. Type Y for yes if you think the Chiefs are Super Bowl bound with Bieniemy. Type in for no if you think Bieniemy's not going to make that much of a difference. Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Here's my take. Bieniemy may not be able to fix this offense like day one. He's not going to step in and immediately be able to understand what is going on and fix it. But he knows Patrick Mahomes. He knows this offense. He knows, honestly, Matt Nagy. They work together. He knows Andy Reid. He could come in and be working within 2 weeks. Like, he knows what to do. I think at this point in time, you have to see this from what was different from last year to this year. Try out Bieniemy. If you can get him, I don't understand why you would not. If he is not on the Commanders in the next 2 weeks, he should be in a plane to Kansas City as soon as possible. Which leads me to the next talking point. Is it time to start putting some blame on Brett Veach? I think it is, because I don't want to blame this season on him. I don't think that's right, because I understand the cap space has been tough. He's trying to make sure Patrick Mahomes is happy. He's been trying to make sure Chris Jones is happy. And there's just kind of a lot of moving parts with Kelsey, Mahomes, Jones, keeping this defense good, which he has done a great job at, drafting people with the last pick in the draft in the first round. I mean, he's just been kind of doing a lot. But there's 3 key points that I think we need to talk about. Now, the first one is that he failed to sign any big free agents and left Mahomes with no wide receivers. Let's be honest. This season, or rather this offseason, it was the rumors surrounding DeAndre Hopkins, the rumors surrounding who is a wide receiver the Chiefs will get to replace Juju Smith-Schuster. And Brett Veach elected to sign nobody and just draft a wide receiver, but not a wide receiver in the first round. No. A wide receiver in the second round. And I'm not going to bash Rashee Rice because he's been insane. But the fact that was the fix was a little silly. Now, he also let Eric Bieniemy walk this past offseason and settled for Matt Nagy, which in hindsight, it looks terrible. I think at the time, people didn't think too much of it. Now it seems like it's a big decision. So I don't know how much you can put that on Brett Veach, but at the same time, if you're the GM, you have to kind of understand these things. That's your job. You go in there and have to understand how exactly this organization runs and how you have done so well. And then the biggest one that I think maybe hurts him, he's never been a big guy in the trade deadline. And this year, when you knew the team wasn't as good as it has been in past years, he made just one trade at the deadline. And that one trade was from Mecole Hardman, who hasn't exactly been doing all that great this year. In fact, he hasn't even played that many games. And I know that's not Brett Veach's fault, but he's only played in 4 games due to a thumb injury. He's had 8 receptions for 47 yards, averaging just 5.2 yards. He's had no touchdowns. He had a great punt return, but I'm not going to say that he's a good trade because he can return a ball. That's not at all what that is worth it. I mean, it just seems like time in and time out, Veach has just become complacent with this Kansas City Chiefs squad. He hasn't felt the need to separate themselves because coming into the season, it was the Chiefs are the best team who can dethrone them. And I think he got complacent in saying that we are the best team. Let's see if anybody can dethrone us. You have to not be able to sit there and think that, oh, well, we're fine. You have to think, how can I make this team better constantly? And I think Brett Veach is thinking that, but at the same time, he hasn't done anything with it. So I understand that he needs to start making moves, making decisions. There's a lot of things that I think needs to be done here with Brett Veach. Now, I asked this question because there's been people who have had gripes. There's been people who have shown their frustration in the comment section of previous videos, and honestly on live shows. I've seen comments. I've seen them all. And they say, Brett Veach has messed this up. Brett Veach this, Brett Veach that. Well, here's your time to shine, Chiefs Kingdom. Let me know your confidence level in Brett Veach as the Chiefs GM moving forward on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being least confident, 10 being most confident. How confident are you in Brett Veach? I'm around a 5 area at the moment. And I think it's fine because it's a middle ground. Because there's a lot of gripes. There's things that I think he hasn't done right. But there is something to be said about him having Patrick Mahomes, about him having this amazing offense, about him continuing to have success with the Kansas City Chiefs, about him going in here. I mean, he's still pretty young for a GM and constructing this team, having Andy Reid, and doing a very good job with what he's been given. With the money that's been really tight, he's done a pretty good job. Now, again, that's the complacent issue, though, is I don't think he's tried to try and improve it. He's just kind of realized a pattern that's worked and stuck with it. You got to start stepping out on your box here a little bit. And so that's why I'm around a 5, because I'm not going to be least confident in him, but I'm not going to say I'm most confident. But he needs to back me up on this, and I want that number to rise in the offseason with some offseason moves. Now, I'm sure we'll make a video on this in the coming future, especially once the season's over. And hopefully at that point, we're talking how the Chiefs were the biggest comeback of the season ever. They looked terrible the last 6 weeks, and they go to the Super Bowl. That's the hope. But at the same time, that looks kind of dim right now. And so with the offseason coming up and, we don't know how many weeks, we got to see some sort of life this offseason. We got to see him go out there. And there's 2 big things I want to see him do. First one, I want you to sign T. Higgins. I think that's a big key. I don't think you need Chris Jones. And I'll talk about that more later, but I'm just going to say I don't think you need Chris Jones. I think the defense is fine without him. You want T. Higgins. You have T. Higgins, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce. That offense is lethal. And then I want Matt Nagy probably to not be the offensive coordinator. I'm fine with him keeping him on staff. You want to keep him as a quarterback's coach, that's fine, but I don't think you need to have him as the offensive coordinator. He obviously does not know how to scheme an offense with Patrick Mahomes, and this offense has just kind of looked flat over the past couple weeks and looks just like they don't want to be there. I need a coach that's going to fire me up, not Matt Nagy. Eric Bieniemy may be that, but we'll have to see, and all season's coming up, so make sure you subscribe here on the Chiefs Report to make sure you're up to date with all the Chiefs news, Chiefs rumors, and when we get there, all the offseason talk, draft, free agents, hiring, firing coaches, Bieniemy coming back, we don't know. We'll find all about that as time kind of flies by us here on the Chiefs Report. But for now, that's all we got. Hit that subscribe button, and as always, Chiefs Kingdom, peace out.